The air smelled of oil and morning sweat on the factory floor that day. Dawn outside was just a thin grey margin barely seeping through the greasy glass windows. I stood among the few men whose night shifts had ended, shoulders aching, and watched as the supervisor, a man with great drooping eyes, walked straight toward my end of the line. His boots slapped the concrete louder than usual. He held a folded khaki slip, my slip, in his hand. I knew what was coming, even as I struggled to keep my jaw unclenched. My fingers, numb from hours on the press, fidgeted at the hem of my shirt. When he stopped in front of me, I didn't look away. "Ashwin," he said quietly, "you're not needed anymore. Go home." A few of the other men turned their faces away, pretending they hadn't heard or cared. The words echoed in the high-ceilinged silence as if bouncing off the rusting rafters. I took the slip without a word. My boots squeaked on an oil patch as I walked out, passing the time punch clock with its glass face cracked in a spider web. My locker was cold. I gathered my water bottle, a tin lunchbox, and the folded notebook I always carried. I left the floor without looking back. Dawn outside was pale and uncertain. I walked toward the station, away from the factory that had sustained and limited my life for 5 years. The city around me was just waking, crows shrieking from the electric wires, first buses grumbling on the road. When I reached home, the building's staircase creaked under my weight. Ma was already awake, boiling tea in the cramped kitchen. She glanced at my face but said nothing. My silence rummaged through her thoughts and found its own answer. Inside our one-bedroom flat, Baba sat on the floor, surrounded by Marathi newspapers, his face unreadable. Soon enough, word would spread across our chawl. Uncles would murmur, some auntie's tongue would wag, and new fuel would be added to the joke I'd become. But that morning I watched Ma's hands trembling as she poured tea, saw Baba press his lips together, and I decided. I was finished living by measures designed by someone else. Factory or not, I would chase what filled me with hope instead of dread. Back when I was 12, I told my family that I wanted to build robots. Real robots, machines that could think and move, not just toy cars with wires exposed. They'd laughed gently at first. Baba patted my head. "Robots are in Japan, beta. Here you do real work and eat real food." In our neighborhood, dreams not related to banks, factories, or government jobs provoked belly laughter in the men's tea circle and careful scorn from mothers. "Robotics engineer," my cousin Prakash used to say, his voice high with mockery. "He'll make a servant for Ma to sweep the floor." Years slid by. I made remote control cars from scrap, soldered circuits late into the night, and burned my fingers to stumps learning by trial and error. My grades in physics were the highest in my class, but nobody cared. Everyone knew marks meant little if your head was filled with foreign nonsense. College was a brief, burning hope. I scraped together enough scholarships to attend an average engineering school. My professors liked my questions, but what robotics lab could I join on my family's earnings? After graduation, it was straight to the factory, days and nights hunched over stamping machines, overtime just to help pay for Anjali's tuition, my younger sister who never mocked, but learned from my disappointments to silence her own ambitions. My robotics projects became a box of shame packed away under the bed. The Electronics Forum website, once an escape, grew distant, yet even during those 5 years at the press, my mind wandered in circuits and code. Each day I'd save some rupees, each month I'd buy another tiny part, a used servo, a relay, a broken sensor. Nights belonged to glowing breadboards, quiet clicks and whispered bursts of hope. When I lost the factory job, I felt oddly released. The worry in Ma's face was painful, but her eyes seemed to understand something deeper, something only a mother could. Maybe, she thought, a lost job was a door opening, not closing. The first months were hard, far harder than the factory in a different way. Without a wage, every expense felt like a betrayal. I picked up street repairs, repaired ancient radios, installed antennas for neighbors. Still, every rupee added to the quiet project in my closet, which, like me, broken, incomplete but persistent. It took almost a year to build the first one, a rolling platform with a mechanical arm fashioned from old umbrella spokes and riveted scrap. Its brain was just an Arduino clone, its body a patchwork of street salvage and scavenged boards. When it worked, lifting a pen, moving it from the kitchen table to the window ledge, I sat in the darkness and felt tears run down my cheeks. My family remained uneasy. Prakash would pass by with his scooter, see me hunched over screwdrivers and wires, and laugh so loudly his voice echoed down the corridor. "NASA will call soon, eh? Don't forget us when you go to Mars, Ashwin," aunties told Ma. "Send him to work. What's he doing with these toys now at his age?" Their laughter fed my determination even as it chewed away at my confidence. Still, something changed the day I uploaded a rough video to YouTube. I showed my little robot picking up a spoon and placing it delicately in a cup. The video was shaky, my English was halting. But the views trickled in, first 50, then 1,000 within a week. In my inbox, a Mumbai-based tech startup founder sent a message, "Can you build one for us? Reply if interested." It felt unreal at first, like a prank. But he was genuine. He came to our chawl, tall and pale, his beard trimmed and phone always in hand. He watched my bot trundle along the balcony and nodded, eyes narrow with real inspection. "I think you have something, Ashwin," he said that day, looking not at the machine but at me. "Work for me as a freelance engineer, payment by project. You'll have to hustle, but you're talented." When he handed me my first official contract, typed, signed and stamped, I thought of all those years spent pressing steel and stifling my real self. That day, I shed the invisible collar of other people's expectations. The next 2 years moved in surges, bright and strange, like monsoon rain after drought. Sometimes I felt like a fraud, waiting for someone to tell me my luck was up. Every project had its disasters: robots that refused to move, code that glitched at just the wrong moment, overnights hunched under a bare bulb rewriting firmware with bleary eyes. But I kept delivering. The startup grew, hired me full-time. We built autonomous delivery bots to ferry parcels across office parks and university campuses. In this new world, I found other engineers who'd felt like outcasts before success, men and women whose families had called them crazy too. We ate egg curry at canteens after midnight, shared tools, and laughed about our childhoods spent in city shadows or village attics, soldering our hopes in secret. I could pay for Anjali's medical school without worry. I gave Mar a new sari and Baba a wireless set with gleaming dials. Prakash slowed his scooter when he passed our building, now unsure how to treat me, yet public validation remained distant. My family listened to my stories each night, but the wider neighborhood held its smug distance, waiting for evidence beyond my absence in the labor crowd. The day the newspaper printed my name, Mama saw it first, a small column. Mumbai startup's homegrown inventor builds delivery bots for city tech hub. There was a photograph, me, awkward in borrowed formals, grinning against a backdrop of silicon chips. Baba's hands trembled softly as he held the paper. He didn't say much, but that night he pressed my shoulder as he passed. Ma smiled at strange intervals, lost in the memory of all the times she defended my foolish projects to the neighbors. But real recognition, I knew, would need more than ink and pixels. By then, the tech startup had bigger dreams: real field testing for our robots, public demos among investors and policymakers. The CEO planned it for a Sunday morning at the sprawling Bandra Technology Park, with city officials, press, and, to my surprise, an open invitation to families and community members. When I told Ma, her forehead creased. "Will the neighbors come, Beta?" I shrugged. "If they want, there's free snacks." Word spread as such things do. I heard Uncle's chortle in the open stairwell, going to see his cartoons walk. "Maybe the robots can fetch his tea." Anjali squeezed my hand, her eyes luminous. "They're coming, Baya, they're going to see." That Sunday, the city air was sharp with possibility. The field was scattered with blue and white canopies, banners fluttering in the heat. Our robots, grey and practical with white plastic shells, waited along taped-out lanes on the tarmac, circuit lights blinking. The audience gathered slowly. I saw my parents, Anjali, and, among strangers, faces I'd known all my life. Prakash and his even noisier friends, Auntie Shalini with her bag of samosas, and Uncle Govind, former foreman of my factory. The press buzzed around, cameras glinting. My CEO spoke, his English running ripples over the crowd. I barely heard him. My heart pounded with memories, mockery, hope, and every night spent with a soldering iron and fear. Suddenly it was my turn. The microphone felt heavy. I explained each robot, how they navigated using sensors, how they could deliver parcels or medicine in hospitals, how they learned from their roots. Most listened politely. Among them, my community watched, arms folded, faces cold with skepticism. Time for the demo. As I hit the remote, a hush settled. The lead robot whirred to life, rolling toward a burner-marked delivery point A, swerving smoothly around cones. Its arm rose, dropping a packet onto the correct platform as coded. Then the second bot launched, climbed a shallow ramp, dodged a sudden obstacle, one of the children giggling as he ran into the track. The cameras flashed. Maybe it all lasted 10 minutes, but to me, each second was thick with past and future tangled together. But what I remember clearest is Prakash's face, as the robot completed its course and stopped precisely before him, offering him a small silver box. For a moment he looked at it as if it were a magic trick, stunned, his mocking voice lost somewhere deep inside. Uncle Govin stepped forward, peering close. "Ashwin, this is really your doing." His eyes were wide, not with scorn, but with something like respect at last. "Yes, uncle," I said. "I built the first one in our house. These are my children in a way." Something shifted, quiet but powerful. The crowd began to murmur, now with curiosity instead of laughter. Baba stood straighter than I had ever seen, and Ma's sari shimmered in the sunlight. Even Auntie Shailini, her voice usually sharpest, said, "Our Ashwin has done what no one in our area ever thought possible." A reporter snapped a photo. Me kneeling beside my robot, surrounded by press, my old mockers silent in awe. To them, success was real only when they could reach out and touch it. When dusk settled that day, the crowd thinned. My family and some of my former critics lingered by the display tents, snacking on leftover samosas. Prakash steered his scooter beside me as I wrapped up cables. His voice was uncertain, softer than I'd ever heard. "Ashwin, I didn't know you could really make all this work." I shrugged, feeling no triumph, only deep peace. "Neither did I sometimes." He grinned crookedly. "Maybe you could show my brother how to solder." "Anytime," I said. Walking home, I felt every fraction of the journey, the dust, the buzz of distant traffic, the smell of my city after sun. People glanced up as I passed our building. This time, the silence was not mocking but charged. Awaiting a space for possibility, Ma sat outside our door waiting, lamp glowing at her feet. She didn't rise as I reached her, just smiled softly, eyes shining. "For years, I worried you would be broken from inside, Beta. Now I know you were always building something, both in your mind and in our lives." I sat beside her, the scars on my fingers warm in my palm. Around us, Mumbai glimmered, both bright and cruel, a tide of millions still trying and being mocked and daring anyway. But for this moment, my family and my neighborhood, however grudging, had seen what became real when a ridiculous dreamer kept building silently, stubbornly, until his truth could no longer be denied. In that silence, I found everything I'd been searching for, and in the home I returned to, no fancier than before, but now lit with possibility, I knew I finally belonged.